Welcome back, card game players. This is Maelstrom Gaming, and we have a deck list and a strategy guide for Red, Yellow, Sabo, and 4 Emperors. Before we get into the deck list, let's talk about the leader ability. He is a 4 life leader, Red, Yellow. In this format, he will be 6 life. Remember that. 5k leader. Dawn times 1, activate main once per turn. You may add one of your cost 3 or higher characters with 7,000 power or higher to the top of your life face up. Give up to one of your characters plus 2,000 until the start of your next turn. So this is we're going to break apart to a couple different pieces. We're going to talk about our 2Ks, our defense, but also what we're going to do to actually pair up with our leader ability. We need cards that cost 3 or higher and that we can easily get to 7k power if they are not already there. Then we can play more defensively on cards that we don't want to die by giving them buffed power. And another special thing Sabo can do is loop effects, and I'll get to what I mean in a moment. So 12 to 13 2Ks in a 50 card deck roughly equals 15 2Ks in a 60 card deck. But this is a fairly aggressive list where we are able to gain life. And so 1 with aggression and 2 with life gain. We're actually going to cut down our 2Ks way down to 9. But the 2Ks we picked are very important. So other than their primary purpose being a 2K, each of them I would be happy to play. Koala and Otama are power minus cards. Beji is an amazing trigger. Hiyori is able to reorder your life. Frankie and Usopp help you versus people playing events, which I think are going to be incredibly popular in this format. And Satori, Frankie, and Kuma are all able to be played off of your life. We also have some blockers that help us delay the game or make deals with opponents. We have Viola to be able to reorder our life cards, but then we're also able to block with her afterwards. Shirahoshi is a blocker that is hard to deal with outside of combat. Brule is a blocker we can play off of our trigger. Shreya is a blocker that extends his power buff for all of our opponent's turns. Rayleigh is a card draw card. Baccarat is able to buff our leader. Katakiri lets us flip our lets us flip our life and plays with Rested Dawn. Lim is a blocker that lets us lower an opponent's leader during their turn. That way, when we can either make deals with Luffy players where they play 10 cost Luffy, we let them kill our Lim to KO something else, but then when our Lim dies, we set one of our opponents to minus 2,000 health power. Let's say they're a 3k leader now. That's a lot easier for our opponents to attack into our opponents as well. With that package, I don't know if I explained that very well, but with this package, it allows us to convince our opponents to focus on each other rather than us potentially even knocking each other out. So we just saw it with Lim, but probably the best example of this is Happiness Punch. And if you didn't watch my other video where I explained this probably better than I'm about to, Happiness Punch is able to give one of our opponent's leaders or characters up to minus 3,000 power for the turn. Now, in regular One Piece, this is meant to be used defensively, but here we can use it offensively. If opponent A attacks opponent B, during that combat, we can play this card to give opponent B minus 3,000 power to their leader for the whole turn. That way, they're swinging in, opponent A can swing into opponent B, and opponent B has a lot harder of a time defending that attack. Happiness Punch, I'd Never Shoot You, Green Star Rafflesia, and Igloo all do that same thing. Karasu is a card that allows us to get jealous of our opponents having all the fun, and we get to dock our opponent's leaders during our own turn. These next cards are cards that we use that we'll be pairing to loop with Sabo's ability. A lot of these cards you can see have triggers, so we can tuck them back into our life. They'll be face up, people will know what the triggers are, but it still won't stop that the triggers are there. They are all cards, everything here is 3 or up and can be easily looped with a maximum of 2 Dawn on our leaders. Zoro, Kid Killer, other Zoro are our rushers. Cracker is a heavy hitter with double attack. and we have some cards that remove or get through blocker. We also have Sanji, which, noteworthy, during our turn will only take 1 Dawn to make them a 7k. We also have some incredible abilities that we can loop with Sabo. A lot of these are higher end cards, so you might not be as tempted to loop them with Sabo. And what I mean by loop is play the card, use Sabo ability to put the card back into life, your opponent attacks you, and then you have the card in hand. The next turn you play it again. And if you're playing politically or making deals with opponents, you can actually pull that off quite well. We have Monkey D. Luffy and Nami as removal, Yasop and Newgate primarily as cards that buff our leader's power. Beckman, Katakuri, Rayleigh, and Yamato are also removal, but those are more of that boss monster category, so they're not going to be as often that you're looping them. Alright, next section, Burn Baby Burn. The only card in here that is a character that you can't loop with Sabo is Basil Hawkins, because really Basil Hawkins, it's an on-KO ability, so even though you can tuck him into life to draw 2 cards, trash a card from hand, you really want his on-KO. Each of these cards either gives an opponent an option or will take an opponent's life. And so each of these will target each opponent. Nico, Robin, Hawkins will both trash opponents' life cards. Linlin, both of them will give each opponent a choice. Kid will trash each opponent's life card, but then give you card advantage end of turn. Soul Focus and Reject are event versions of the characters that we have already mentioned on this slide. Then we have an endgame. Our endgame is going to be how we try to close off the games when we've already done those first couple of abilities, particularly the burn abilities. When we've got them down to low enough health, we need a way to actually win. And so we have the aggro cards from earlier, as well as Shanks and Newgate. Shanks and Newgate are going to be removal cards that are also very big threats on the board. Both of those Luffy's, the 5-drops, they are rush characters. The first one gets through blocker, the second one makes himself a 7k, or is able to put a Dawn onto your leader for a free ability activation. You've got Ace as a healer, you've got the 10-drop Luffy to make deals, but also a rusher, and Shanks will make every opponent's character minus 1000 power. I would almost have that 10-drop Luffy or that 10-drop Shanks just stay on board and not necessarily attack. There will be times where you want to attack with them, but be careful when you open it up to vulnerability, or maybe that's the card that give plus 2000 to with your leader. Then you have Dragon. Dragon is a boss monster that you can put Dawn onto your leader for a free activation, or anything else. You can put it on any character, but most commonly onto your leader. Then you have a Gold Roger. Gold Roger is just the highest power for its cost card in the game and is able to stop our opponents from activating blocker. The last slide here that we have some valuable cards that round the edges and increase consistency of the deck. It's a very aggressive deck that can lead into a very controlling deck once you get to the high Dawn count. But we have Gum Gum Red Hawk and Divine Departure as double-ups between removal and counter cards. Flaming Dragon King is just counter, but also lets you rearrange your life, which is important for some of our effects. Kingdom Come is one of the best removal spells in yellow. Highest Point Reached and Us are both new EBO2 card draw spells, and important to note with those two cards, it doesn't matter that you play the red and try to grab it doesn't matter what color you grab. Either of them can grab any color. It's just accessible in each color now that EBO2 is out in Japan. And so Highest Point Reach in Us, it can grab either color, and it will grab us our boss monsters, or honestly a couple of our mid-range characters as well. You're the One Who Should Disappear is the greatest card to have in our life pile at the last life, which things like Flaming Dragon King can swap around our life total. But if it's not there, it can just be used to discard and pitch so that we don't brick, but we can still counter. The last card we have is Starter Deck 1 Nami, And starter deck 1 Nami is able to give Arrested Dawn to our leader so that we can activate our leader's ability even when we play a 10 drop. Alright. Well, that's all for the deck. I would say that it's a very good deck to go very aggressive early game and then start trashing life. If you wanted to wait and not play as aggressively, I would just build up a board and then start trashing opponent's life. And when you've trashed enough of their life so they're low enough, you can just then attack. That way they're not getting some card advantage. But at the end of the day, if you have a deck but no one to play with, then you can't play. So where do you play? You can either play in person, you can find people at your locals, or you can play on webcam in the Discord. The official Discord link is here. I'll also put it in the YouTube description. Go ahead and check it out. And I'll see you next time.